Hmm. All right. Well, I always like to take these manuals, something to read, right? Okay. Interesting. Hopefully, I didn't wake everyone up. Let's see here. Actually, that is some loud, squelchy noise from me on that guy. Can't I put it in my inventory, maybe? That makes sense. All right, never mind. Whoa, that's cool. That's pretty. All right, let's get things going. Hardly a light freighter. All right, let's go. Hold on a minute. All right, let's try that again. Huh. I see myself. Hmm. All right, there we go. We're over art core, right? Okay. Oh boy, this is not. This doesn't look promising. Okay. Is that chip just floating there? Damn, coffee machine still doesn't work. Okay. Okay, that was weird. Probably may need to switch angles in a bit. Actually, I don't need to. Hmm. Mhm. Okay. Let me see here. Okay, let's go. we go. Yeah. Well, that's convenient. Okay. All right, that was weird. Let's see here. There you go. I guess only 2 layers, which is kind of weird. go. Alright, let's see where we're at. There we go. Well, there's no large contract. I guess we'll just take it. You know, the one way I like to go shopping for armor, just grabbing it off the floor. How's everyone doing today? Oh, looks like there's already a ship here. Interesting. Two ships here. see. Okay, interesting. Well, I could go down there and take a look, or just let's see. Hmm. Actually, hold on. Enter room, check landing turret, spool quantum, engine on. Not bad. Ooh, that would have been terrible, actually. That's annoying. Damn. It's a long range. Alright, let's sort this out. Alright, let's see if there's anything I can take from these guys. I think I killed like 2 of them in this corner here. Oh, there they are. I think you got a backpack. Yeah, you did. All right. See any boxes around here? Oh. Oh, it's a decorative SU. Okay. I just want to carry it. What? Huh? All right. Your backpack is now mine. It is not returning to your back. All right, let's go. Really, no OMs? Okay. Let's try this. Come on, don't do this to me. I sense a rare. Alright, we'll try another way. They were working earlier. Alright, we're gonna go to a larger hangar and go from there. Let's see. Uh, uh, what? You've gotta be kidding me. Uh... Well, listen, lady. Not my fault my ship got frickin' sent to the oblivion. Let's see. Actually, hold on. What if I take a second one? Alright, let's try this again. Frick, I'm losing ADSU. Can't believe this. Oh, you know, I can't believe it. It's Star Citizen. You know, I thought I could fit. What on earth? 3 freaking Polaris is here. Oh, wait, oh, wait. Oh, this is Final Fantasy 13 music. Hmm. Okay, you know what? Okay. Can't tell from here, but all right. Oh no, come back here. The dance of death. Should be fine, but it's gonna be annoying. Huh? What the? Okay. Well, I'm just tripping. Okay. Okay, here we go. Hold on, is this working? Okay. All right, here we go. Come on. Oh my God, come on. There we go. That's such annoying. There we go. There you go. Let's see here. I don't see what's the point of buying viewers. It's not like it's going to do anything, really. Whoa! Oh no! Let me DM him. Let me... Hmm. Ah! Hmm. Okay. Nothing goes as planned, huh? Are we missing one? Uh, it is what it is. We'll take it. Let's see, where am I at now? This is such a slog. Ugh. Alright, while we're waiting, let's just get a contract real quick. Our core. Akko's return. that's not the chill lo-fi I wanted. Let's see. Go. Boy. Alright, they're starting to spawn. Okay. Alright, cool. Let's see, there should be an enter. Should be an enter remote turret, I think, somewhere. Oh, there it is. Dang it. Alright. Oh, I got it. Nice. Almost. That's not what I wanted. There we go. Grab a med pen of all things down there. Beam me up, Scotty. Nice. Here we go. Oh, looks who's zooming over there? I really can't wait for this event to be over. Well, for me anyway. I'm a little behind because I spent like a few weeks off. Ay, ay, ay. All right, let's try that. Ah, come on. There we go. She's so nice. I like her. All right. Where are we at? Hmm. Man, we're not even close. Let me see here. Hold on. Let me do the math on that again. Let's see. 780. Wait, 790. So 200. All right. All right. I'll be right back. Oh yeah, I forgot this place doesn't have like a weapon shop. There we go. Sus. How pleasant. That's an interesting thing here. Just gonna wait for them to show up. Oh, hold on. No. Oh wait, they showed up. All right, hold on. Oh, 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 oh. I think I find this a lot easier. And I get paid more too. All right, maybe I need to move a little closer. Oh, there they are. Let's see if I can get that one. Right? Yep, there we go. Cool. Well, definitely found a new way of doing this.
Still, he couldn't help but feel anxious. Meanwhile, Jink's team continued traveling through the floors at full speed thanks to their enchanted items. They only thought about catching up to Herbert. They soon reached the area where Herbert's group had camped. Seeing that the firewood was still warm, they assumed Herbert was close by. Cannon's teammates were glad that Jink was with them, allowing them to travel quickly and relax during breaks. Cannon then asked them to stay alert, not just for the emissaries, but also for the Acrocanth variants in the area. On the other hand, Herbert and his men arrived in front of the Acrocanth's nest. Herbert claimed they could take on the pack leader if it was alone. If the monster got angry, it could call for its partner. Since this monster's variant also spat fire, Herbert suggested ending things before the pack leader called for its partner. He ordered his men to fire everything at his signal. However, Jink and the others had already caught up to them. Herbert couldn't help but get angry and shouted that he would feed Jink to the Acrocanths. The emissaries then charged toward Jink's team. Cannon suggested they finish things fast before the Acrocanth variant woke up. Cannon's teammates then made way for Jink to target the mages in the back. However, Herbert stopped Jink in his tracks and swung his spear violently. The two then exchanged blows with each other. Jink then recalled how he hated spears. Despite looking random, Herbert's attacks showed no openings. The sorcerers were also preparing to shoot their attacks. Herbert was then flipped over by Air Tornado and lost his footing. Cannon appeared to help Jink and pointed out that the emissaries were already being pushed down. It took a while because they were being captured alive. Herbert got up and ordered his men to fire a magic spell on the sleeping Acrocanth. The sorcerer exclaimed how dangerous it was. Herbert ordered him to do it, but the sorcerer refused, not wanting to follow the orders of a tyrant anymore. Herbert then grabbed the sorcerer and threw him into the lair. Jink and Cannon couldn't believe Herbert had killed his own ally. The Acrocanth variant appeared, snacking on the sorcerer. It roared loudly, getting everyone's attention in the area. Herbert laughed and wondered how Jink would catch him now. When Herbert saw the monster wake up, he ordered his men to escape. He ran by himself and told the others to run if they could. Cannon and Jink tried to stop him, but the Acrocanth blocked them. Cannon couldn't believe Herbert had done something worse. Ian then reported that they had captured half of the emissaries. Jink decided to catch Herbert on his own and asked Cannon to handle the Acrocanth. Cannon promised they would catch up soon. The Acrocanth tried to attack him, but Jink easily deflected the attack. Jink went after Herbert, and Cannon and her team dealt with the remaining emissaries. Cannon decided to get serious against the big monster in front of her, and unleashed her wind magic on the Acrocanth. The monster fell to the ground, and Cannon's teammate charged forward to confront the huge creature. He wasn't fazed by the monster's counterattack because the enchantments left by Jink were helping a lot. He then pushed back the monster, and Ian and the others followed up with their attacks. The emissaries now realized why it was hard to escape from their pursuers. Just then, Acrocanth hatchlings started surrounding them. Cannon's teammates saved them while calling Herbert a mess of a leader. They made it clear that they were only disposable pawns for Herbert, as he had sacrificed one of them to wake up the Acrocanth variant. Ian continued attacking the Acrocanth with techniques, wounding it in the process. The Acrocanth then tried escaping to the pool of lava and suddenly roared loudly. The roar was a call to get the attention of its larger partner. The two monsters then attacked with fire breath and splashes of lava. Cannon's teammates were slightly burned and called it a rookie's mistake. Cannon instructed them to
All right, let's
out
go.
of the lava pool. Everyone retreated, and the monsters chased after them. While running, Ian used his healing gloves to treat the others. Seeing that it was troublesome if both monsters stayed in the lava, the group decided to separate them by focusing their attacks on the first one. Everyone then stopped running and started counterattacking. The monsters were still standing strong, but everyone was doing their best. Meanwhile, Jink was still close behind Herbert. The criminal felt frustrated seeing Jink not even sweating after their long chase. He then ordered his remaining men to slow down Jink. However, Jink easily dealt with them, taking down the swordsman first. A sorcerer tried to cast a spell, but Jink quickly knocked him out. Jink then confronted the last one.
Yeah, this is much easier.
He said he couldn't stand someone like Herbert, who sacrificed others to save himself. Herbert reminded Jink of someone terrible from his past. Herbert got angry, saying Jink didn't make any sense and started attacking with his spear. At the same time, Jink threw a water ball to the side. Herbert laughed at Jink for missing, but Jink's target was actually a nearby lava pool. Steam began to fill the area, causing Herbert to lose sight of Jink. He then noticed Jink's silhouette and stabbed it, but it was just a decoy. Jink was behind him the whole time and declared that it was all over for Herbert. He used a water cyclone to send Herbert flying. Herbert was badly injured and fell to the ground. Just then, Cannon and the others caught up. Cannon noticed a pile of mud nearby, and Jink explained that it was a decoy. Writhing in pain, Herbert still cursed at Jink. Cannon ordered her Emperor Slime to drop on Herbert. The slime swallowed Herbert, and his skin and clothes started burning. Jink watched him struggle and asked Cannon if she was trying to unalive him. Cannon claimed she was only covering Herbert in slime so he couldn't fight back. She said Herbert might lose most of his skin, but he wouldn't die. She wanted to carry Herbert back and put him on display since he wasn't a decent human being. Jink was reminded again of Cannon's nickname, the Tiny Devil. Jink then suggested using his golems to transport the criminals. For now, they wouldn't worry about Herbert and his troubles. He then wondered if Esther and Dan had made it to Rosaria for the war. Esther, on the other hand, couldn't believe he would be back in his home country, as he joined Count Brand's main force. Count Brand welcomed his son back, along with the Hughes siblings Dan and Esther. He quickly informed them about their next mission, capturing Skild, which was occupied by Nasal forces. Esther noticed that more of Rosarda was being taken over. Tar, the capital of Rosarda, was controlled by Quoll except for a few remaining resistances, but it would fall soon. Rosarda had become the battleground between Quoll and Nazal. The Count mentioned hearing about Jink training his son and the boys. The Hughes siblings confirmed they were in good shape and ready for deployment. Hearing this, the Count reminded his son and the boys that they were at war. He told them not to see their enemies as humans. Unlike monsters, enemies could speak and have families, but in war they must kill as many as possible.
Let me see here. Recover large shipment. Yeah, let's just do this one.
Became too much for them. However, Esther reassured him and thanked him for his concern. Esther soon had some free time and walked around. He overheard soldiers praising Dan for being a famous adventurer, the Hughes siblings for their talent as sorcerers, and Chris for having the presence of a young lord of the Brand House. However, they doubted Esther's abilities. Despite being the brother of an S-ranked adventurer, they thought Esther couldn't prove himself on the battlefield since he looked like a frail little girl. Dan confronted the soldiers after hearing about Esther. The soldiers got flustered and made excuses to leave. Esther apologized to Dan for the trouble. Dan told him not to let them go. Esther said he was already used to people gossiping behind his back. Since Quoll occupied Rosarda, the residents had started talking bad about him and Jink. Rumors spread that the brothers lined their pockets and ran away right before the kingdom fell. Dan pointed
Let me out.
Man compared to the soldiers and suggested teaching them a lesson. Esther was fine with it since he didn't want to cause a scene that would ruin his brother's reputation. Dan felt bad and swore to step in if things got out of hand. Esther said that would be unnecessary since he would show the soldiers his battle skills instead. Dan agreed with the plan and suggested they visit Count Brand. That night, the two met Count Brand, who was planning to discuss something with them. He asked Esther to join his personal guards and earn valor there. He decided this based on Jink's stories about Esther's achievements and strength. He was considering Esther to be a platoon commander, but knew some soldiers would disagree. He believed that was a safe way to gain valor. Dan asked if Count Brand knew his soldiers were speaking badly about Esther. The Count admitted he knew and had punished those who went too far, but it only made things worse. He worried that more penalties would lower the soldiers' morale. Esther felt sorry, but the Count blamed himself as a leader and as an adult. After thinking for a while, Esther made a request. He wanted to fight on the front line. The Count was concerned, but Esther reassured him that he was a good fighter, thanks to his brother. He believed the slander would stop if he showed off his skills with a spear. The Count worried Jink would be angry if Esther died in battle. Dan assured the Count that he would keep an eye on Esther and make sure he didn't overdo it. He also mentioned that there were no famous warriors on Nasal's side. The Count then agreed to send Esther to the front line, but told him to retreat if things got dangerous. Esther was happy and thanked the Count. A few days before Esther and the others joined the Brand Company, a tired Gordon Nonland was fighting enemy forces. It had been half a year since he became a slave soldier. The capital was being invaded and his worn-out spear wouldn't change anything. He wondered if Esther was okay and worried when he The story begins with a bunch of people summoned to another world while on their way to meat or add some fermented herbs as condiments. She was shocked that it could get even more delicious. While he was making plans, the mermaid was thinking how good he was. He then asked her name, and her name was Plati. Itanami was about to tell her his real name, but he decided to change it and said that his name was Kidan, and stated that he was looking forward to living with her. He started his.
This is actually one of my favorite mangas. So wholesome.
Kidan woke up and noticed that Plati wasn't in her bed. He wondered if she was comfortable sleeping on the bed and hoped that she wasn't struggling. He heard a scream and it was Plati shouting that there was someone in the field, but it was actually the Scarecrow with a wooden sword. He explained that scarecrows drive away birds that would ruin the crops. By having it there, the birds would think it was a human and wouldn't come close to the crops. Suddenly the scarecrow started to move, which was usually impossible.
Alright, let's
Was
come
that
down
only
here.
because of his skill? Plady asked if something was wrong with his hands, but he explained that he was summoned there by the king of that country and he was another worlder. While he was explaining his skills, Plady realized that he was a hero. Kidan was surprised that she knew it. She thought that
Oh
she
boy,
was
oh boy, oh
so
boy, oh boy, oh boy.
cool. Kind and asked what he was doing there. He explained that he didn't like to kill
Oh.
demons, so he basically retired to that place. That was pretty surprising to Platty because land dwellers and humans usually stick together to survive, and if they don't, they would be killed by monsters. She wondered how he was different from them, but he said he was the same race as the one she was speaking of. He then started to think about what to do for breakfast and remembered that she woke up early today. He asked if she was okay and where did she go. Unexpectedly, her face turned red and told him that she had gone to the toilet. She then asked him where did he do it. He said that he was doing in the ocean, which made her pissed off. He tried to defend himself by saying they were doing that while sailing, so the plankton fed on that, then were eaten and made the food chain. She told him that there was no such thing and that she hated exactly that insensitive side about humans. The ocean's food cycle was completed by the ocean's inhabitants. She required him to not impose his older world's dirty ways on her. He begged at her feet and apologized. She suddenly started to run away from him.
Let's see, did anyone leave behind anything here? No? Okay.
He thought about the toilet situation and realized that he may seem to have forgotten the basics of survival. A part of him was relieved that Platty was there with him. However, he wondered how she felt about that. Platty came back from wherever she was and brought him a starfish-shaped monster. The prideful starfish stay underwater and absorb organic matter around them, and they were the ocean's cleaners. If he put them in something like a box, he would have his toilet. She cut her wrist just to show how it works, which made him worried. He felt guilty because of what was happening to her. She blushed for a moment, but then she showed him that her wrist was fine. He was amazed by her. He apologized for being so scared, inconsiderate, and dirty. The reason he fished her was also due to the power he had received, and told her to go back to the ocean if she wanted. But she refused and told him that she liked him, which is why she was going to support him as his wife. Kidan got shy and thanked her. She stated that even though their life became easier, he still had to make her breakfast. Meanwhile, in a dungeon, there was a demon sensing his strange mana close by. In the next scene, Platty is showing her skirt.
Actually, I want to try something real quick.
She brought in her luggage. He felt sorry for not being resourceful enough. She didn't mind that because a wife made herself presentable for her husband's sake. Besides, she was going out for the first time in a while. He wondered where she was going and she said that she found a dungeon. A dungeon was somewhere you could venture underground and find treasure, fight with monsters, and there was a boss waiting at the bottom layer. It would be easier if he saw it himself, so she took him to the dungeon. The dungeon was 2 hours away. She stated that she found it while he was working in the field. It was a cave-type dungeon. Apparently, dungeons appear where it is abundant in mana. It looked like a normal cave to him, but when he took a step forward, he felt an enormous power. He felt like a large animal was licking his face. Depending on the place, the energy that flows and circulate around the world would stop its flow and stagnate. Those places become dungeons and would become increasingly dense inside the dungeon eventually. It would condense and be reincarnated into monsters.
Alright, I want to see if this
The
works.
monsters born within the dungeons would eventually overflow and invade the earth and its oceans. Kidan was surprised by her words. She mentioned that cleansing the things inside was next to impossible, so they would periodically come back and beat up monsters. Before he could object, she went into the dungeon, and as her husband, he decided to go with her. Inside the dungeon, it was completely different from the entrance. The interior was like a castle. Platty felt something strange and noticed that they were already there. A bunch of different monsters started to run towards them. She told him to stay back and took out a few little tubes. She threw them the tubes and created an explosion. Kidan was already amazed, but it wasn't over. She froze them and struck them with lightning. Lastly, she literally melted them. All of those were thanks to her ability to make battle medicine. She kept walking while he was thinking about how he couldn't choose which one was the monster. He let her handle things there. Besides, he felt like he was useless if he couldn't get a hold of a weapon to use against them. He looked around and found a sword, but it didn't look like he would get the chance to use it. He said that she beat quite a few of them, so he wanted to go home, but she refused. There was something weird about that dungeon she was feeling. The layout of the dungeon and the feeling that those monsters were being led by something means that there was a master there. Dungeons with a master were extremely rare, and they were also extremely dangerous. When he heard that, he looked worried. There were only 2 species that could even become dungeon masters in the first place, which could be a dragon, or something else, but before she could say what it was, they got a weird feeling that Kidan felt at the entrance of the dungeon. The ghostly air proved that there was a dungeon master there, which was the worst of the 2. A king of the undead, lifeless king. Lifeless King was a powerful and intelligent magician or high priest who decided to turn themselves into an undead during his past life. The immortal monarch that reigns over the undead and encounters him was meant to encounter death. The Lifeless King was feeling that special mana and wanted to turn him into a corpse and welcome him as his companion. She threw some of her potions, but it healed itself. She told him to run and leave that to her since she had some potions, but he could never do such a thing like that. He swung his sword and started to run towards the king while saying he was her husband. Plady was about to tell him to stop, but the king yielded immediately, leaving them in shock. The Lifeless King said that although he used the holy sword to strike him, his power was still frightening. He got so happy that he picked up a holy sword. The king realized that the sword was the one he owned, but that sword was now his, because holy swords have wills of their own and they choose their own masters. And he was the chosen one, and as he lost the holy sword, his duty in that world was over. He informed him that he could strike him down with that sword now. Kidan felt bad and stated that he was probably not the owner of that sword. He explained that he came from another world, and before that, he was given the power to become a master of any tool he held. That power probably reacted with the sword since he was using it. While he was explaining, the king cut his words and couldn't believe him. That was a gift from the gods that was only heard of in legend. That kind of a skill immeasurable within the calculations of a skill, which was probably why the Guardian couldn't see any skill. Someone who has received a skill from a god shouldn't even considered a hero. And the king told him that he was a saint. He prostrated him and asked him to allow him to offer him the greatest form of hospitality. Meanwhile, Plady was feeling proud of her husband that she set her eyes upon. The king then asked what brought him to such a place, and he explained that he actually settled down in the area. Plady mentioned that exterminating monsters was the most important thing for someone living there. Monster fur and bones made for great magic tool materials. He couldn't believe the dungeons of that world were actually convenience stores. She then asked if it would be okay to go wild around every once in a while, and the king was okay with it. He was actually cleaning some of the excess monsters himself so they would be helping him. Suddenly she seemed to like the king as she called him their neighbor. They introduced themselves and the king had a hard time remembering his name. In his past life, he served as the archbishop of a certain church. And it seemed that for some reason he ended up
Get in there, we go.
He delved into that dungeon and absorbed the stagnating man, where he turned into an undead by placing a great curse upon himself. He seemed to forget the reason why he became an undead in his name. Plady and Kidan felt bad for him, but from now on it would seem his suffering that was boredom would wane, even if only a little bit. Kidan smiled and told him to come visit them sometime. He mentioned that they would welcome him with some of the vegetables they were growing and called him Master. He explained that since the Lifeless King was a high-ranking member of a church during his life, he would be calling him Master from now on. Master thanked him with tears in his eyes, and this is how they found themselves a nice neighbor and obtained the Holy Sword. In the next scene, Kidan finished making a smithing kiln. The holy sword was amazing because it could cut a boulder like it was warm butter. She wondered why he made a smithing kiln. He reminded her of the mana metal right present he received from the Lifeless King. She found the king very big-hearted. There was rarely enough mana in cave dungeons for it to materialize into a single piece of mana metal, and giving it away like that was a big kindness. When she asked what he was going to do, he said that he would make what he had been wanting to make. She thought he was about to make a sword or something, but he made a pan and a kitchen knife. He thought it would be faster if he demonstrated it. He cut the vegetables with the kitchen knife and then fried them with the frying pan. He added flavor using salt and pepper. He finished making the fried vegetables and Plady seemed to love it. He also made some utensils. The mana steel was a good heat conductor and it was very light and the burnt food didn't stick on it, so it was easy to clean. He got so happy that his cooking repertoire expanded. Plady asked if he had other new dishes he wanted to add and he approved her. She asked what he needed and the meat was his priority right now. The meat would be amazing with vegetables with some oil. After hearing his words, she decided to stroll in the forest. She mentioned that due to her being a mermaid, she still hasn't seen a mountain-type monster until now, and she had always wanted to eat one. Since he looked confused, she explained that there were a lot of types of monsters like bird types, and mountain types of monsters which were deer and boars. The most cooking-suited ones were mountain types, so that is why they were in the forest. Kidan mentioned that the monsters were born in the cave dungeon, but the Lifeless King was using his powers to control the monsters from going out, which could mean the mountain itself was the dungeon. However, he didn't believe that there was a dungeon near there, so he was comfortable. Ironically, a bunch of square boars appeared and they were definitely ready to fight them. Unlike Kidan, Plady was happy that there were 2 dungeons nearby. He told her to focus on beating every single one down. She told him to restrain them as cleanly as possible and not be picky with her bringing them down naturally. The boars started to attack him, so he had no choice but to use his sword and he managed to kill them all. She was praising him, but he did it because they had been coming one after another and he unexpectedly defeated them. She changed the subject and suggested to start preparing it. She promised to use her potion to freeze the meat and preserve it if he cut it to a size that is easy to cook. After a while, they finished cutting and freezing the meats, and he was amazed by her. Thanks to her, their daily life would started to improve. She was waiting for him to make something delicious, and he was planning to make tonkatsu. His mouth watered while thinking about tonkatsu, but there was something missing, which was the egg. He asked if there was a custom in that world where they cook bird eggs. As much as she knew, there wasn't, but she did hear that the land dwellers of that country do that kind of thing, but he can't see that kind of thing in the mermaid country. She suggested going to the mountains again one more time, and if they searched, they could possibly find a bird-type monster. If they happened to come across a monster again, they would have to kill it too. Suddenly, he sensed a strong presence, and they couldn't understand what that thing was in the air. When it landed, they realized that it was a dragon. The dragon asked if they were the ones who invaded the dungeon he was ruling. Kidan was still in shock, and Platy pointed to the mountain asking if it was there. The dragon approved her, and she asked if he was the master of that dungeon, and he approved that as well. The dragon's name was Grinzel Dragonvale, and he asked who entered his Dungeon King mountain without asking, and slaughtered his underlings. Kidan tried to explain that they didn't know that there was a monster of that mountain. He apologized and promised to never go there again. However, it was unforgivable for Grinzel, and he was so dedicated that he would erase his entire existence. The dragon started to attack by shooting flames from its mouth. Platy was in a panic, shouting they were going to die, but he would not let that happen. So he swung his sword toward the flames and blocked it. The dragon was taken aback by that because a mere human could never do something like that. Meanwhile, Platy was so proud of her husband. The dragon was still shocked that nothing was harmed by its flames. They looked at each other, and Kidan apologized for entering its dungeon without permission. But if he really wanted to pursue matters beyond that, he would fight with him. He asked if the master of the dungeon was willing to fight with death with him while he was praying that it would back off. The dragon didn't say anything but saw his sword. He had an idea to use the sword's name to make himself look stronger than he was. However, the dragon told him that the sword was his and tried to take that from him. Before it could take away the sword, Lifeless King appeared and stopped it. He punched the dragon and apologized for everything. They didn't seem to understand what happened, so he explained that the dragon came to his dungeon to find the ones who entered his dungeon, and he accidentally told it about him. Kidan told him that it was their fault to barged into the dragon's mountain without permission. He explained that for a monster of the dungeon, invaders were just an everyday occurrence, which means getting angry just because the shallow part of your dungeon was invaded, and leaving the dungeon to chase down the invader was too imprudent. He kept scolding the dragon for a while and told him to go back to its mountain, but the dragon refused to leave there because he wanted to have the sword that its father asked it to retrieve from that dead body. He asked why the Lifeless King gave the sword to him, and he explained that the sword had its own will and chose Kidan over there. The debate flared up and they were about to fight with each other. Kidan told them to wait and hold on to the dragon's tail, and it fell like it was nothing. The dragon was trying to understand how he managed to do that, but instead Kidan asked him if he would like to join them for a meal. He then brought a newly cooked steak, and when it ate it, he was enchanted. While the dragon and Platy were begging him to give more, the dragon started to shine and shrinking. The dragon then turned into a girl. Lifeless King explained that the dragons do have those kinds of abilities. The dragon girl explained that she come to like the steak he made and would always loke her. After they ate, the dragon, which her name was Gritzel, told him to not get carried away just because he could cook a bit. She also stated that she would burn that man inside into ashes with the cum in her bad. She turned to a dragon again and promised to took the sword back from him and eat delicious meat. He told him that he was welcome anytime. Before it left, she asked if there were any bird monsters in his mountain. He didn't know how many, but they were bony, so they don't waste good. She asked if he had some eggs, and they have eggs. It seemed he could make the meat dish even more tasty than today. After hearing that, the dragon went straight to the dungeon to catch the birds. She stooped it and told him to took her too, since she knew about monsters' ecology. They were gone, and he smiled at the sky, thinking how lively his life was. In the next scene, Kidan makes a sword out of monometal. The sword would be the world's strongest sword if he excluded the holy sword. She asked if he was going to sell it, but he had planned to upgrade Kakashi, which was his scarecrow.
Kakashi, that scarecrow.
Birds aiming their fields and told him to use it. While Kakashi was trying to kill the birds, Kidan yelled that killing was prohibited, but it didn't really seem possible anyway. She asked why he gave the sword to him, and he explained that it was because it was awesome. She did not seem to understand his type of romance. It had been a while since Kidan went fishing. The last time he went fishing, he caught a mermaid and he got married. As a salaryman like him, he was sent to a different world and he thought he would fully enjoy his slow life there. But his life became fulfilled, thanks to the mermaid who forced him to become her husband, Lifeless King, and the Dragon Veil. Being able to have a moment of peace away from that liveliness was relaxing to him. While he was thinking that, a head appeared on the surface of the ocean. A man with the same ears as Platy asked him if he was friends with Platy, and before he could answer, he ordered his soldiers to kill him and everyone who opposes. Everyone started to throw their spears at him. He immediately grabbed his sword, made a counterattack, and defeated the soldiers. While thinking about what to do, Platy came and what was happening. The man who tried to kill Kadan was Platy's brother. The soldiers asked her if she was okay and called her princess, which made Kadan confused. She decided to introduce herself properly and explained that that man was her older brother, Prince Arowana, and he was the next heir to the throne. She then introduced Kadan as her husband. Everyone was shocked. She understood that he came there to bring her back, but she stated that she would never go back to the Mermaid Kingdom. Prince Arowana didn't seem to accept her decision and told his soldiers to resume the battle to kill the land dweller, Kadan, for violating his sister and kidnapping her. Killing him and bringing back Platy. She told Kadan to not hesitate to counterattack, but there was no way he could dare to do that. The dragon came to help, and the soldiers wanted to run away in panic and fear. The dragon asked if Kadan was alright, and the prince was too stunned to speak. Platy told Dragon to not get too excited just because he was thanked. The prince was still having a hard time processing what was happening and didn't even notice that he was the only one who didn't leave there. As a reward for not running away from the dragon, Gazar told him that he would turn him into charcoal. The prince wasn't scared of someone like him and refused to listen to anything he said. Platy agreed and told him that since there was nothing to talk about, he should return to his kingdom. Kadan interrupted and told her that she couldn't talk like that because the reason her brother was there was because he was worried about her. As for him, it was his responsibility to listen to what he had to say. The prince thought about it for a second and changed his mind. Kadan led him the way and the dragon hoped that he would treat him to a new meal. Platy seemed confused about something. When they returned home, the prince reprimanded Kadan for allowing his sister to reside in such a rundown house. Kadan felt ashamed. As he began to imagine various scenarios in his mind, Platy advised her brother to turn his attention to the other side, where they kept the meat and vegetables from the mountains in a storage building. It was the prince's first encounter with a plaster wall, which left him astonished. But that wasn't all. There was also a factory where they produced seasonings, and they had to wait for the miso and soy sauce to be ready. The prince found himself perplexed by the unfamiliar terminology. Platy bragged about her husband about how skillful he could do anything perfectly. Even the storehouse served as her magic compounding room too, and he was also treating her well. Kadan offered him a seat to eat the new dish he made. He mentioned that recently he made a garden table to drink some tea and eat. The prince noticed the little girl and asked where she came from. He explained that she was Grinzel Dragonvale's human form. He then served everyone a plate of zenzai, which was made from azuki beans. The prince and the others tasted it and were amazed by the taste. Grinzel asked for the second, but since he grew it accidentally, he could only make a small amount of them. Platy and Grinzel glared at the prince because if he wasn't there, they would have eaten more. The prince then prostrated himself and apologized for underestimating his abilities, and stated that he was considering him as a saint or a sage. The prince was now convinced that his sister was in love with him, and wanted to leave his sister to him. Platy was excited, but he asked the prince if he was sure that was okay. That was his first time hearing that she was a princess and had responsibility, and she can't just give up on everything and marry him. After all, a lot of people's expectations were involved in that, he thought, but she didn't need that. She didn't care about people's expectations as long as she was married to him. While she was screaming, the prince told her to calm down. It seemed to him that Kadan didn't know Platy's circumstances. If it was a marriage, Platy faces a problem she cannot avoid. Vale seemed like she already knew the situation. There was a conflict over the sovereignty of the surface between humans and demonic beings, and it had now reached the mermaids who were neutral about that issue, so political marriage was imposed. The prince asked how she knew that, but as long as that continued for 100 years, it would still get on her ears whether she liked it or not. Kadan now understood the situation. The prince approved Vale and mentioned that engagements from both humans and magical beings were coming.
Chili
The
dogs.
royals were forced
There
to
you
choose
go.
a side. Kadan asked what happens if they don't want to choose either side. If they don't, they will become enemies of both sides, and they will be targeted by their attacks. That is why the highest echelons of the kingdom were discussing which race Platy should marry. Her brother understood that she wanted to solve the problem and save the kingdom by disappearing. And now she was living with Kadan without any disturbance, so he wanted to fulfill his sister's wish. He turned to Platy and stated that he was glad that she met such a nice person like him. He begged for one to protect her and marry her officially. If that was the case, Kadan wouldn't mind marrying her officially. Vale interrupted and confirmed that he was going to marry her. Unexpectedly, she decided to marry him too. She was thinking about how to get that holy sword he possessed, and the properties that would be shared if he get married. And the lifespan of humans was like a blink of an eye for dragons. She was also thinking about the delicious meals she would eat. She then asked if he would marry her, and he refused immediately. She didn't seem like she was expecting him to refuse, so she asked why. and he explained that he already have plenty. She tried to convince him by saying it was totally fine for a strong man like him to have multiple females. Even though he was strong, he wasn't interested in polygamy, and he wasn't even Vale's master. She started crying, which was the last thing he could expected. He wanted to stop her from crying and screaming that she wasn't as strong as the undead king, and he hated her, so he accepted her proposal. While she was celebrating, he apologized to the prince for doing that in front of him, but the prince knew that fathers who had daughters worldwide had that kind of thing in common. Meanwhile, Plady didn't seem to like the idea of another woman. Plady's brother left to report to his father and mother. If they could get their approval, they would be officially married. She seemed to have doubts about the marriage. She confessed that she ran away from home, and because she was caught, she was forced to be his bride, but she had fun and loved his cooking. She stated that she wanted to be with him forever, but thought she was just bothering him. Kidan seemed to be surprised by her words. Knowing her circumstances, he didn't intend to change how they live their lives right now. He received a skill from a god, but they noticed that he was useless in fights, so he came there. And there was no way that he was a strong human, but with that they could aim for a happy life, which is why, from that day, he wanted her to stay by his side, which made her thrilled. She was hugging him when Vale came and stated that she was hungry. He decided to treat them as a wedding gift. In the next scene, Kidan decides that they need more help from other people. Right now, he wanted to do something about the field, and he wanted to manage and harvest the crops that were already matured. Ever since he also started making miso and soy sauce, his hands had been full. As a married man, he wanted to build a home. Then Lifeless King appeared and supported his decision, but he got scared because he didn't even realize he was there. He asked if there was something wrong, but he just had some free time, so he came to hang out. Then he showed him the Mana Metal souvenir. He was very happy that he
God
got
dang
a
it.
big one, which would
Every
be a great
time.
help. With that, he now could make tons of house tools. That was perfect for someone like him who was short-handed. The thing was, the other day, Platy's brother pointed out a few things. He wanted to build something different from anything he had ever done until now, which was why he was building a home. Platy suggested asking Lifeless King for help. He didn't think it would be a good idea, but the king asked how many people he needed, and if 10 would be enough, before he could ask how he was going to get them there. He told them to wait for a moment and transformed. When he came back, he brought a bunch of humanoid monsters from his dungeon. There were 5 orcs and 5 goblins. The monsters who were born in his dungeon took orders from him. He gave them orders to obey the holy saints so he could tell them whatever was needed. He introduced himself, but the monsters stared at him without any emotion. The Lifeless King explained that they don't have the ability to speak. They had enough intelligence to comprehend orders, but they lacked self-aware. He mentioned that he also didn't need to give them rewards. On top of that, they absorbed mana in the air to sustain themselves, so he didn't need to feed them. Platy seemed impressed. He thanked the king for his nice gesture. The king wished him good luck in making his house transformed again. He said everyone to combine their strengths and build a splendid house with a big enthusiasm, but again, there was no emotion on the monster's face. They worked together in a great combination.
So looks like the bug only happens when there's like a new
suited for manual labor, while
new
goblins were
instance.
skillful with their hands because they were small. They were having a hard time learning hard jobs, but if he taught them diligently, they steadily got better. There was nothing special in getting help, but watching them working for him made him become nicer and nicer to them. Platy was watching and listening to him with admiration. He suggested he not empathize with them too much since they weren't living creatures. She was right, but for Kidan, everyone should be given a chance to live like that. She explained that magical beings have employed humanoid monsters on a large scale to fight against humans. These monsters are sent in armies, and their strategy is based on the assumption that they will ultimately be defeated. However, even if they are killed, they can always be replaced in the dungeon. He was surprised by what he heard, but even though what she said was true, monsters were the ones who helped them in so many ways. He tried to accept the world he was living in now. A goblin lost its balance and fell to the ground. He immediately went to check if it was okay, or if he had hurt, but then remembered that they couldn't talk. Suddenly, the goblin mumbled that he was alright. Platy and Kidan were scared and shocked at the same time. When he asked again if he was alright, the goblin approved him again. He tried to say that he wanted to work more for Kidan, and another goblin joined him. Others also started to speak and told him that they wanted to work. It seemed the monsters now had self-awareness, but he did not believe that self-awareness was something that could happen simply like that. That was probably from the power he received, he thought. He reminded himself to use his hands with caution because it was too amazing. However, with his skill, he would finally be able to talk to them. He embraced the goblins with a little tears in his eyes. Platy knew that they couldn't just use them and abandon them at the end. After a while, the house was completed. Vale was shocked when she was in the house because she wasn't there to watch the house built from nothing. She wanted to go and explore the house, but Kidan stopped her and told her to take off her shoes at the entrance. She seemed to love the house and looked like she was going to stay, which was why he made a big house. Plady asked him if he had made the house big enough to let the monsters stay. That was his plan, but when they refused his offer, he suggested they make a tenement house near there where they could stay. He also asked for their help to make the kitchen and the bathroom, which they eagerly accepted. A goblin whom he named Gobukichi informed him that the thing he requested was ready, and he showed her the futon he made. He stated that this was his present to Plady. He grew caught inside with the grass to make tatami and all because he really wanted to have a futon in their new house. When she got to the futon, she was shocked that it felt that good. He apologized for making her sleep on plywood until now. She thanked him with shiny eyes, and she also thanked Gobukichi. Later on, Platy's brother comes to visit them and Kidan offers tea. He commented that building a house like that in a short time must be the gift of a god. The reason he came there was about his and Platy's marriage. He had consulted his father, and at first he was confused, but when he told him about Kidan's personality and strength, his father agreed to it. It was a good thing that he didn't belong to any race even though he was so strong. Kidan mentioned how stressed Plady was because of the political marriage, and asked about the humans and other magical beings. The prince said they were angry, but his father, the Mermaid King, proclaimed that. He convinced his father that Kidan was a holy saint, which is why he agreed on the marriage. Once again there was resentment when they lost Plady, but considering that hostile forces were also aiming for Plady, it seemed that it was better to leave it. The prince prostrated again and promised him that they would do their best to not cause him any trouble and begged him to take care of Plady. He told him to stop that and explained that he enjoyed being with Plady, which he was thankful for it. He arrived there alone, and if it wasn't for Plady, he would still be alone. He might even forget his own name like the lifeless king. The prince was confused that he was a neighbor with an undead king. Suddenly one of the goblins came and informed him that an enemy attacked from the coast, and a large number of monsters that were magical beings landed. Right now the orcs and goblins were fighting them. The prince couldn't believe the place was discovered by the magical beings even though it was their country's top secret area. They went outside and confirmed that the ship was the magical being's ship. One of the orcs named Orkubo got their demon lord. She was Astras of Deception, one of the 4 heavenly kings. The orc explained that she came to kill Kidan, so they captured her. Kidan noticed the pile of bones there, and the goblin explained that they were skeleton soldiers led by magical beings. There were about 100 bodies, but they all defeated them, which made him shocked. He started to give them a lecture about how dangerous it was to do something like that and worried that he could lose them. Meanwhile, the demon lord got annoyed that he was ignoring her. The prince asked her how she knew that place, but she ignored his question and started to insult mermaids. She told him to not underestimate their intel gathering network, and even if it took forever, they wouldn't understand. She then freed herself and explained that her task was to bring back the mermaid princess and kill the bride thief, the holy saint. The goblins informed Kidan that she supervises the demon lord's upper echelons and she was thirsty for blood. On the battlefield, she was a monster who made even her allies tremble in fear. The prince was and tried to attack her, but he stopped her. The lifeless king appeared and stated that they were too noisy. The prince was speechless when he introduced the dead king as his neighbor. Then he was even more surprised when Vale came in her dragon form and asked what was happening. Not only the prince, the demon lord was also surprised that he was welcoming a dragon. Plady came and asked him if he was okay. The prince asked where she had been, and Vale explained that they were searching for eggs on the mountain and for tonkatsu. Then they saw the demon ship on the ocean and got curious. Vale was furious that she, as a lowly demon, came there to kill her master. Hurting her master means having her as her enemy too, so he threatened to destroy their entire race. Kidan warned her to not speak too boldly. Astras seemed to be scared a lot, so he offered her to promise that they wouldn't be hostile to them and they would let her go home. She was too proud to accept that offer and told him to stop insulting her even though her voice was trembling in fear. She tried to pull herself together and stood up. She had a proposal to have a duel with her one-on-one, and if she lose, she would consider his offer. Vale got angry, but he stopped her. Kidan's main goal in that world was to protect his lifestyle, so he accepted her offer and took off his